Hi, I'm Nicola Cairncross.
Hi, hello, hey, hi.
I'm going to talk to you about success. Yes.
Oh, hello. How are you? Nice to see you again. I'm still on my balcony in Greece, the new one, and delighted to join you today. I wanted to talk today a little bit about how I go about creating content like this and where I come up with my ideas, but that'll be in the middle bit. At the moment, I'm just going to say to you that my personal grooming seems to have taken another dive bomb because it's too hot to use the hairdryer. I mustn't complain because I absolutely love the heat. I definitely was a Greek in a former life, I think, just after I was an American. And yeah, so I'm loving it. I'm actually going to go down and meet a new friend for dinner tonight at one of my favourite tavernas, so that's going to be good. And last night I was at the house next door with 5 or 6 new friends having an amazing evening. It's been all go this week in spite of the temperatures being up in the 40s when I first arrived. I went to a drinks party on Sunday night where everyone was just so hot, all they could do was drink water. It was a bit sad really. We all tried manfully to drink more wine but we just couldn't do it. So we all just ended up going home at 11 because everyone was just so tired. But it's funny, isn't it, how there's always something to complain about. It's like in England you complain about the weather being bad, in Greece you complain about the weather being good. And the main thing to remember is to be grateful at all times. I mean, I really do. I'm looking around my little house here and absolutely feeling so grateful. I mean, the icing on the cake would be if the kids were here as well, but they're busy getting on with their own lives. Nelson's in Bali, Phoebe's off to Cardiff this afternoon to film a business coach doing his thing. So I love that. I love that they're off doing their own thing, and that, you know, they're really supportive of me coming to fulfil my lifelong dream of 25 years at least of coming to live in Stoupa. So, love to hear what your dreams are. What have you been thinking about for the last 25 years that you'd really like to get going with? If you're on YouTube, put it in the comments below. Or if you're on Facebook, comments below. If you're on the blog, hit the comments button above. I'd love to hear from you and hear all about your dreams. Today I want to talk to you about adversity, and the reason I'm choosing this as a topic is because I'm experiencing a little bit of adversity in Greece at the moment. First of all, I woke up this morning to no water. Well, I did hear that the water was out in certain areas. They basically funnel the water to Stoupa main town, so the outlying areas occasionally experience outages in the summer months. That's usually due to a burst water main somewhere. It's not that we're short of water on the mainland, because we're not. And the good news is that everybody always gets their water from the standpipes. They're standpipes that dig into the mountain springs, so we all go and fill up our water bottles from those anyway. So at any time you've usually got a few bottles of water in the house, which is very cool, and that means you can top up the loo and you can spruce up a little bit. So that's not such a disaster. The next adversity I've had to face today is the power went off. And there is a website where they're very organised, the Greeks, in their disorganisation. There's a website where they announce where the power shortages are going to be. So today we're apparently going to be off from 9 till 12. Well, good news for me, it only went off for about half an hour. So while I was figuring out what I could do, i.e. I could do anything else except anything that needed the internet or the washing machine. I couldn't put the washing on or anything like that. But what I could do was go down the beach, have a swim, and then use the showers on the beach, which we know is fresh water, so that's very cool. So there's always workarounds for these things, and as long as you know in advance. And the thing about the power outages is I find you can bear it if you know when it is going to come back on again, roughly. And it's always they always put it worse on the website than it actually is in real life, so it often comes back on before you know it. And of course I need power for the internet, so I could tell the power had gone off just by looking at my router. My stopgap in these situations is the good old trusty iPhone. Basically I've got a mobile data package, so if worst comes to worst I can get emails and do some simple messaging via things like Skype and Messenger and chat. So you just have to rearrange your day basically, and luckily today is one of the days where I don't have anything scheduled, I don't have any client calls scheduled. I don't have anything that I need to do at a specific time, so that's really cool. And really I've only got sort of one of those hours a week, which is the podcast recording. So I've set up my business to run without me if in the eventual event that I don't get power, and water doesn't affect the business anyway, so I've set up my business to run without me having to be there most of the time, apart from 1 hour a week on the podcast, and that is reschedulable. So if I can get a message out to Judith that I've got no power, then we can just reschedule, so it's not such a big deal. And the stress levels in my life have dropped dramatically. So how can you look at building a team so that they can pick up the slack in the event that you can't do something that you're supposed to do? The other thing I wanted to talk to you about today was how you handle these things, because obstacles and setbacks will always come up in your business. They just will. That's part of being an entrepreneur. Nobody exists in this world to make your life easier. So you have to make sure that you can handle setbacks and obstacles and don't let them ruin your day. Because I can remember a day when losing the power and the water, well, one or other of them would have been bad enough, but losing two would have been a disaster. And that's all about my reactions to the situations. The final thing I wanted to say on this topic is that if you're trying to run more than one business, it's fatal when this happens, because if you come across an obstacle or a setback in one of your businesses, what you tend to do is go off and work on one of the other businesses, and that isn't great because it means that nobody's paying attention to overcoming the obstacle or setback in the first business, whether it's the main business or not. So Mike Filsame demonstrated this very well on stage sometime, and I've got a little diagram that he shared with us, which proved conclusively why you shouldn't be running more than one business at once. Now, Judith and I talked about this at length in one of the podcast episodes recently. So if you just did a search in Google for Own It, the podcast, and then just put a space and a plus sign and multiple businesses, then you will find the podcast episode. And I hope that it will help you, if you are running multiple businesses, to think again. And in the meantime, I'm going to go and finish everything I have to do while the power's still on. I'm going to put a load of washing on, which may then end up sitting there for a little while, but never mind if it goes off again. I'm going to get everything I need to do uploaded to Phoebe, for example, while the power's on, and then I'm going down the beach where I'll be able to swim, get cool, and have a shower on the beach. So, on the blog this week, I've made notes as you can see, the article about 7 questions to ask yourself before you create a new digital product or service. So that came out of last week's Vzine. So if you prefer to read, then just go over there and a transcript will be available. And also on the podcast this week at ownitthepodcast.com, we've been talking about managing client change and managing clients' expectations during a period of transition from your business from one product or service to another. Also on the podcast this week, we've been talking about entrepreneurial certainty, because It's always changing. It's always different. You know, even when you think you've got it down, got it nailed, things change. And you know, for example, Facebook ads, they change the platform, they change the interface, or your ad stops performing. And indeed, there's things you can do about that. But in order to learn those new things, you have to be ready to change. You can't just, you know, gnash your teeth and pull your hair out and just go, you know, why is everything changing? You've just got to be ready for that. So we talk about that a lot on the podcast. And we've got an interesting month coming up on the podcast soon, because Judith takes July and August off. And she's fixed me up with some co-hosts, which I don't know. I only know about 2 of them. And it's going to be interesting because they're coming along with a new client challenge, which I won't know until we get onto the show. And also, you know, we'll be going through the usual sort of format. And it'll be really nice to have some brand new input from some brand new people. So looking forward to that during August. So do check it out on ownitthepodcast.com. Go and have a listen to the July episodes, and then that'll tell you what we're normally like. And then in August you'll be meeting a whole new set of people. And don't forget, I've just been joined by 26 new Australian entrepreneurs in the Be Everywhere online course. And if you're interested in watching a free webinar about being everywhere online and why you should, especially if you're an expert, a specialist, a business coach or author, or if you're an e-commerce store, for example, all the Aussies are e-commerce store owners, and they're really realising that in order to sell more of whatever it is they're selling on Amazon and eBay, and Shopify indeed, then they need to build a brand, because people buy from people they know, like and trust. So it's a great community in there at the moment in the membership site. So do go to beeverywhereonline.com if you want to join and find out what it's all about. That's it for me. I'm off down the taverna later on, and I will see you next week.